I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Brandon Turner. Probably recognize him if you've done anything in real estate. But Brandon Turner is the founder and managing member of Open Door Capital, best-selling real estate author with over 1 million copies sold, and past host of the BiggerPockets Podcast. I'm going to stop there, Brandon, because I do think probably the majority of people listening do know you. And I think actually the better way to do this is to let you kind of tell your story. But first of all, Thank you so much for taking the time out today. I really appreciate it.
Dude, that's awesome. Thank you for having me, Jason. It's going to be a ton of fun today. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I like your show's premise quite a bit. So you got a good thing going.
Thank you very much. Yet, tell, for anybody who doesn't know, maybe just give them a little bit about your background. I think, we talked before we started recording. I think a lot of the stuff that'll be fun to talk about today will be, your mindset, your shift in mindset, and kind of where you started and where you're at in terms of real estate at this point.
Yeah, man. So if I wanted to chronicle my journey, I like to look at it in 3 phases so far, and there's maybe a 4th phase coming, but phase 1 was really my wife and I just realized at a very young age, we're 21, that every rental house that we bought or every rental property, every tenant we had made us a little bit of money. It's every tenant was like an oil well, drilling oil for us. Every month we were making a little bit of money. Not a lot, but maybe $100 per tenant in profit. And so phase 1 was all about if we just collected a bunch of rental units, we could quit our jobs and be retired at a young age. So we did that. We literally just worked our tails off for 7 years or 6 years. And when we were 27 years old, I had enough cash flow coming in to quit my job. And so phase 1 was all about just collecting rental units in any way I could. I mean, we were hustling as much as we could do. We were finding deals. We were fixing toilets. We were, painting units. We were doing everything. We were bringing in partners to help raise the money because I didn't have any cash. We were just doing whatever we could do. So phase 1 was all about the grind of getting financial freedom. And the beautiful part about financial freedom, and if you've ever played the game Cash Flow from Robert Kiyosaki, the game is you're in this little rat race, this little tiny circle in the middle of a giant board, but the whole entire game basically takes place in this little circle going round and round and round and round and round. You get your paycheck and you spend money, you make money, you spend money, you make money, you invest money, whatever. But then at some point you win the game and you get out of the rat race, you get financial freedom. And the rest of the board is all super cool things, like you start a charity or you take an expedition to Antarctica. It's all this cool stuff. And the thing he's teaching in that game is once you achieve financial freedom, that's when the next phase of your life begins, where you can take risks. You can start bigger businesses. You can move across the country. You can travel. You can spend more time with your family. You can start a charity. So phase 1 was all about getting financial freedom. And it wasn't a lot. It was $3-4 grand a month. It was enough to pay the bills. But that allowed me to do phase 2, which was to start the BiggerPockets podcast with Josh Dorkin. And so Josh Dorkin was a friend of mine. He had started BiggerPockets, the website, years earlier. And then because I didn't have to have a paycheck, I could take that risk and go and help build a podcast and a website. And so phase 2 was all about building BiggerPockets. And I grinded a lot then too, and built it into something pretty awesome and big. And I think we have over 100 million downloads on that when I finally left 9 years later. And at some point there, I started phase 3, which was commercial real estate. So today I buy mobile home parks and apartments, and we have we're just under 8,000 rental units, and we raise money from a bunch of investors, and we are trying to buy $10 billion of real estate in the next 10 years. So that's kind of phase 3.
Awesome. Breaking it down that way, I think is a really great way to framework it for especially people that are getting started out, right? And I think, to me, one of the key things about it that I think gets lost a lot of times in especially in social media, where people are, you see the highlights, social media is the highlight reel, and it's but you said 6 or 7 years with your wife, just hustling, doing everything yourselves, all of that. 9 years of BiggerPockets on the podcast.
like that's a long time, right? And so a lot of people might look at what you've, now having 8,000 commercial units and working towards $10 billion of real estate. Like, people hear that and they're like, crazy, no way I can do that. It's just like unfathomable. But when they think that, I think they're missing all of what you just described that leads up to it, in that you put in the work, you put in the time, and then you were able to make that shift. So you talked about, kind of that shift from, okay, we got to financial freedom, and then you were able to take the risk on BiggerPockets. Obviously, that growth on the podcast, and coupled with your books and all of that stuff, that puts you in a good position to move into commercial real estate. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, really. If you combine, it's like a math equation, like phase one, which was the grind of real estate and learning how it works, becoming good at it. And then combine that with phase two, which was the marketing side of life and how to be a good, I don't say leader. It was really more of like how to market, how to sell, how to get people to know, like, and trust me at scale. So combine those things together and you create phase three, which was the commercial real estate. Because in order to scale, like, really, if you think about real estate is very simple. It's very simple. You make offers, you analyze deals, it's a math game. The only thing you're really limited by is two things: your ambition and your capital. Everything else is a dial. You can just turn up or turn down, right? If you want to buy more houses, make more offers. If you want to buy more houses, make more offers in more markets, hire more people. Like, everything's scalable. Everything is scalable when it comes to real estate. And it's just dials you turn up and down. I didn't realize that early on, but I realized that now after interviewing hundreds of like big investors. It's just dials. You turn it up, you turn it down. But the thing that's not is your ambition or your vision, you could call it, and your capital raising. So how do you raise mass amounts of capital? You got to have massive number of people know who you are and like you and trust you. So that's why, phase one and two led to a successful phase three. It's just kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. And again, I think it's really important for people understand the amount of time you put in, time and work that you put into that to getting to phase three. I've heard you tell the story before. I think it's an important story. So you don't have to spend a long time. I'm sure you're sick of it, but
I will.
What got you? Feel free to. I mean, elaborate as much as you want. But the story of, kind of how you decided to get into commercial real estate. I think it's a good one for people to kind of understand.
Yeah, man. So, phase one, right, about all these rental properties. And then I kind of eased off the gas. We would do a couple things a year, maybe like flip a house once or twice, maybe buy a rental. We partnered with my in-laws a little bit on a couple properties. But throughout the whole time I was building BiggerPockets, I wasn't really doing a lot of real estate for at least the first 6 years of that. And what happened was I was on stage at a conference. I'm standing up on stage looking out on about 1,000 commercial real estate investors who are like apartment complex owners and, fund managers and all this. And here I am owning my 30 rental units or whatever, talking to these guys that own thousands of units. Yeah. And I realized in that moment that I didn't deserve to be on that stage. Like, I was there because I could sell tickets to a conference. I was there because I have a good mouth. I can talk and I can hype people up, but I didn't deserve to be on that stage teaching like the best of the best in the real estate investing world. And so what I realized was that I had been coasting. I've been resting on my laurels. I had been taking the easy route. And there's nothing wrong with that, about taking time off and relaxing a little bit on that. And I don't regret the years I didn't build my rental portfolio. But what I did decide is I wasn't living to my full potential and I was capable of more. And so that is when I left that conference with a mission of, I'm going to get into this game and I'm going to deserve to be on this stage. And that's kind of what I then did. I went home and I built a big company because it's like I knew deep down, I don't know if I've ever even said this out loud before. What maybe bothered me more than anything is I knew I did not have the skill set to be a member of that audience. Like, I knew I wasn't good enough, like a skill set wise. And it wasn't analyzing deals or making offers. I'm good at that stuff. What I mean is I was not a good leader. I wasn't good at business in general. And that's what I decided to set my intentions on doing, and it totally worked. So that's where I'm at today. So yeah, just don't rest on your laurels. Don't rest on your, it's easy right now, so I'm just going to coast through life, because so much happiness is derived from growth. It's fun to grow. It's fun to do challenging things and then to accomplish them and to win. So that's where that came from.
Yeah. And a great point on growth. I mean, it's sort of a personal example. Like I'm a veterinary surgeon, and I trained a long time to do that. I love doing it, but I also reached a point where it was like, there's not new surgeries for me to learn.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I'm not going to, like, yes, I want to be good at it. I want to, stay sharp, but there wasn't a lot of growth to be had. And so then, sort of adding real estate into it. Now here's this exciting new thing I can learn and grow in. And so it's for sure very invigorating, and it is kind of easy to coast and rest on your laurels, especially if you've found a spot that you're successful in. So I think all really good points. And I guess I would argue you're not qualified to be on the stage. I would argue that's not true, but I understand the point of what you're getting at there. And it brings up what I find like an interesting dichotomy in the real estate world, is that there are some people that are really good with the marketing, social media, being seen as a thought leader. And then there are some people that are maybe really good on the operational side, and you don't hear about them, right? Like there's a lot of these companies, especially the big ones, that have like the face of the company, and then you talk to them and then they don't necessarily have, like, they don't actually do a lot of the day-to-day operations. Yeah. And so, that speaks to team building, but also speaks to the power of both aspects, right? Because you had built you were seen as a thought leader, and I guess maybe you didn't necessarily at that point weren't saying you're not equipped to be the operator maybe for a large multifamily, but you have that, sort of leverage and capital amongst people you had interviewed and people knowing you to be able to build the team that you did and in the way that you did. I just think it's people really have to realize, like, find your spot, and then like surround yourself with others who can complement you.
Yeah, there's a great story out there that's tossed around in a lot of business books about Dr. Oz. And the doctor on like Oprah. He had a TV show, he had a magazine. At like the height of his career, he was like still doing 300 open heart surgeries every year. And the question is like, how could he do that? And it's because he wasn't in there like walking the patient into the room. He wasn't cutting them open even. He wasn't walking them to the room afterwards. He wasn't administering the drugs. He wasn't doing any of that stuff. He was doing one cut, like the thing that he was the best in the world at doing. And he would walk into the room, the person's already opened up, their heart's sitting there. He does the cut, he does the sew, whatever his thing was, and he leaves. And that's how he was able to do that, because he knew his value. And that's the thing he was paid to do. And he made a ton of money doing it. So the question I always pose to entrepreneurs today is like, what is that Dr. Oz cut in your life? Like, what is the thing that you actually have to do, that you should be doing, that you're great at doing, that you're uniquely positioned to do that thing, and then bring other people around to do their Dr. Oz cuts. And that's the beauty of a business. So when you get a bunch of people all doing their special cut, like, and everyone's thriving because they're doing what they were put on this earth to do, and they're better than anybody else at doing it. And you're leading them because that's your cut, is to lead. And like, man, what a fun adventure business can be when you approach from that standpoint.
How do you suggest people figure out what their cut is? Because I think that not everybody knows, right? Like maybe if you've been in real estate for a while, you might know, but how do you? Because I feel like, and a lot of people I've interviewed on the podcast, it's like, figure out where you add value. And I think that's kind of the same concept, right? You're talking about what your cut is. How do you suggest people kind of figure out what their value is, what their cut is in that, in whatever business it is?
Yeah, I guess in the beginning, most people just kind of do everything, right? You kind of do it all, and you slowly outsource your way out of it. So you bring in other people below you. So like in the beginning, I did everything in my real estate business. I mean, I was everything, my wife and I. And then like one day I decided to hire my mother-in-law to answer phone calls from tenants. And it changed my life, because all of a sudden I didn't have to talk to tenants anymore. And I don't like talking to tenants. I hate it. She's really good at it. Her Dr. Oz cut is talking to tenants, right? And I didn't even like, so I guess for me, it was, what do I hate doing? What do I really not like doing that I'm not good at and somebody else can do, right? And most things in life, like that's the truth. Like most of what a business person does, somebody else can do it. You probably don't like doing it. And like, you don't even need to, like somebody, the whole thing is just irrelevant if you can find someone else to do it. So like, let's talk like finding real estate deals. If you want to go to a real estate example, like, do you have to be the one that actually talks to real estate brokers? Maybe, but maybe not. It's just asking that question. Just by being cognizant of the question will help you dial in what you actually have to do. Now, maybe if you have no cash, you don't have a lot of connections, you don't have a lot of experience, maybe you do have to do a lot of that work, in which case, great, then that's your cut. Analyze deals, talk to brokers, figure out what those things are. But then as soon as possible, try to find somebody else to do them. If you want. I mean, again, like you could do all the things yourself. I don't know about you, but I'm just not good at doing everything. Like I'm not good at most things. I would rather watch TV or scroll TikTok than do work. So as much as I can find other people to do the work because they're employees and they get paid for it, or they're partners and that's their job, they're doing their specialty, the thing they like doing, that's when you're going to see your business grow. So I guess, how do you find your Dr. Oz cut? How do you find the thing you're good at? It's just really trying to figure out what don't you like doing or that you're not good at that somebody else can do better, and have them do that. And if you have to give away equity, if you have to JV, if you have to partner, who cares? Volume, like do twice as many deals and give away half your profit. It's the same thing, but you don't have to do the crappy work anymore. I had a guy recently ask me, he was like, well, why would I give away, why would I take 10% of my, like, why would I give away 90% of my business and only take 10% and just to do 10 times more? He's like, at the end of the day, it's the same amount of work. I mean, it's the same amount of money, right? So if I like, instead of working 40 hours a week, if I only worked, whatever, if I gave 10 or 90% of my profits away, but I could do, 10 times more, it's the same amount of money. And I said, yeah, that's true. But when you do 10 times more and give away, 90%, the money might be the same, but the hours are different and the enjoyment is different. I would rather work 4 hours a week and make the same amount of money because I've got 90% of my profits given away to other people. Am I making sense? That makes sense. Like that's where I would much rather partner and JV and have other people and give equity and all that and just do more, because it just means the more people involved, it means the less I have to do of things I don't like. And the more I can do of the things I do like, and the few hours I have to work on that.
Yeah. And I think without doing that, eventually you just can't scale anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
if you're
really
like, I'm going to keep, if I'm going to keep all of it, I want to keep all of it myself because I want every percentage myself. Eventually that's not going to be sustainable. And you're going to have, whatever it is, 2, 3, 5, maybe you get to 10 deals, but eventually you won't be able to keep going. So it's, with your example and doing it that way and partnering now, okay, if I'm giving away a big chunk, but I am unlimited in how far I can go in sort of total growth. So I think it's, yes, if you're talking about one deal and you're giving away 90%, fine. But if you're looking bigger picture and, you're looking to get to 10 billion and 10, that's, you can't do that without giving up some to have partners.
Yeah. I mean, imagine the guy who says, look, I don't want to work with partners. I don't want to let anybody else in. I don't want to work with banks because banks are going to take money. I'm going to save up money for a rental property. And so for 10 years, they save up money and they finally save up $200,000 and they buy a rental property after 10 years. And now they're making money because now they got a rental property that they paid cash for. That's great. It took them 10 years to buy one rental. Like I would rather use leverage in terms of other people and money and everything, and then buy 5 properties your first year and get the same money 10 times faster with less work and less irritation and less headache. Yeah, I'm just such a big believer in leverage, whether it's people or money or whatever time. Like leverage is such a key to doing what you actually want to do with your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. It's sort of a good, I guess, transition. You where we met was at the Steve Sims Speakeasy, and you gave a talk on working 5 hours a week. Yeah. And I guess not everybody listening was there. So maybe if you can kind of give that story, and then I do have some questions on that, I think.
Yes. So really what I was talking about was like the mindset you approach building a business with. And let me explain that in terms of a story. Like, let's say you want to start a roofing company, right? You want to go and replace roofs because that's actually kind of a cool business, right? Because it's ongoing. People always need it. Recession or not recession, roofing's a good business. So you want to go start a roofing company. The mindset you have will dictate how you build your roofing company. We all have a different mindset when it comes to entrepreneurship or building something. And so the DIY mindset says, I'm going to go do it myself. I'm going to go like learn how to nail on shingles and take off shingles. And I'm going to go to Home Depot and order all the shingles. And I'm going to have it, I'm going to pick it all up in my truck and drive it to the house. I'm going to haul it up on a ladder. I'm going to put it on there. I'm going to get my own customers. I'm going to go door to door after I do a job. I'm going to go to all the neighbors and say, I can do your roof. And that's fine. If you like that, if you like roofing, if every piece of that sounded like a lot of fun, great. That is a DIY mentality, but there's a limit to how much you can grow. Now, the next mindset, the next kind of level, I call it the project manager. The project manager looks at the idea of starting a roofing business and says, well, I don't want to actually nail the roofs, the shingles on. I'm going to hire, John and Bill and Jose. They're going to put the roof on. And I'm going to just make sure they show up. I'm going to go to Home Depot, probably get the shingles delivered. I'm going to call up the garbage company, have them bring a dumpster so we can throw all the shingles in the dumpster. So I'm managing the project, but I'm not doing every single thing. And that's cool. If you like project management, it's a great way to build a business, but there's a limit and you're still working a lot of hours and you got to make sure when Bill shows up 10 minutes late, like you got to yell at him. And then when Jose doesn't show up one day, you got to go fire him. And like, you're still involved, but you're not necessarily nailing shingles. The third level says, no, I'm going to build a company. I'm the COO or I'm a CEO, whatever. I'm in charge, right? So I'm going to build a business. I'm going to hire a person who's going to be in charge of getting me leads on the roofing leads. So he's going to go door to door. I'm going to hire a VP, VP of sales. I'm going to hire a VP of, I'm going to hire a project manager to manage the contractors that are actually going to be tearing out the roof. I'm going to hire a finance person to handle the books. And then I'm going to run these people. I am going to meet with them weekly. I'm going to set the vision, the mission. I'm going to give raises. I'm going to give performance reviews. I'm going to lead my team to victory and I'm going to manage them to victory. That's the COO level. So we've got DIY, we've got project manager, we got COO level. But then there's and again, nothing wrong with that. That's actually the highest level most people ever get to, is they're running a business. And it's great, but you're still working a lot of hours, but maybe you get to take more time golfing. You're not doing quite as much work. You're making more money. It's a good position to be. Most people never get beyond that. But there's a fourth level. And this is what I kind of call like the Richard Branson level. I actually call it the energy. There is an energy to business that if you are the energy, you can start a business and build it from the outside looking in. And so Richard Branson owns like 150 companies. He probably doesn't even know half of these companies. He doesn't work in them. He's the energy behind the company. So he can attract talent. He can set big vision on where it's going, but he's not actually involved in any of it. And so he built it from the outside in, or he acquired businesses. That's another thing that the energy does is they acquire businesses that they're not running. And so any of these work. I mean, again, any of the four work, but the energy is definitely where the most money is. Think of The Rock with his tequila or Kylie Jenner with her makeup. That's where it's so much money. George Clooney did it with something, right? Matthew McConaughey has something. The big people, they have their energy drives the business, but they don't actually work in the business in any part. But the great thing is about this framework is that the more you move towards the energy, the more money you make and the fewer hours you work. If you look at McDonald's, who's working the most hours? The frontline people. Who's making the most money? The owner. And so, or really the real estate investor who owns the land that the McDonald's is on, right? Like they're really like the energy, right? So there's like this scale of passivity that goes, and here's the cool thing is number one, you don't have to start at the beginning. You don't have to start DIY and slowly work your way up. It's mindset. You can shift it like that. You can change it like that. You can choose, I am going to be an energy. I'm going to be the energy behind this, or I'm going to be a COO and I'm going to run this. And then you just approach it from that mindset. Now, how do you get in that mindset? The way that I do it is I ask the question, remember the bracelets, WWJD back in the 90s? They're like, what would Jesus do? Like, you're at a party and Everyone's smoking weed and they're like, hey man, you want some weed? You look down at your wrist. You're like, no, because what would Jesus do? Right. It's that concept. Right. But I'm like WWRBD. What would Richard Branson do? What would Elon Musk do? What would David Osborne do? What would David Green do? Like, what would people who are good architects or at this energies, like another phrase for energy, I call it the architect. They design the business. So what would the architect or the energy behind the business, what do those people do? Or if you want to be a COO, like that level, what would they do? Think of somebody who's amazing at running a business that's not working in it. Like, what would they do? So ask yourself what they would do, and then hire the person below you. If you want to be the energy, hire a COO to run your business. If you want to be a COO, hire project managers and build your team out. And so when you start thinking that way, again, you get to choose what level you go at. And so make a choice, go in, and if it fits, like you're going to find, once you find your spot, once you find that you fit in a certain mindset, business goes from being a drag to being an enjoyment. Like you're going to love everything you do because you're finally in the right spot. You're sitting in the right seat on the bus. It's great.
Yeah. It sounds great. Do you think, so I'm just thinking along the lines of what I think, maybe people listening to that and where they might find, I don't know if argument's the right word, but just like do you think you could have started Open Door Capital as the energy from that standpoint, had you not already put in all the time, as a DIY and then the time at BiggerPockets? Do you think like someone can just start there? Like okay, that sounds awesome. I want to be the energy. I want to be the architect. I'm going to go from there. Do you think that's really feasible? Or you think, I understand mindset and I'm all about that, but like from a realistic standpoint, do you think that someone could just start there?
I think that being any of those categories, there is a skill set that comes with it. And I think that it is possible to gain the skill set in other ways. And what I mean by that is like, when I say energy, it's almost like a confidence. It's a communication style. It's a network. Like I have a network. When you have a big network of people, you have an easier time being the energy because you can find good people in your world. Now, could I just come to a foreign country that I've never lived in before, not speak the language and not know anything about the industry and just try to be the energy of some business? Can I go over to Japan and start a manufacturing company as energy? I doubt it, right? Like there is some dues you have to pay, but I would argue that like most people, if they're in real estate right now, if they've done a few deals, you could probably jump right to that. At least jump to COO, at least build a team around you. And people are like, well, I don't have the money to build a team. Well, you can give equity. Like I've said many times, I give away over half my company to my team because I want us all incentivized to go in the same direction. Who cares if I'm giving away half the equity? Like we're going to grow 10 times bigger. Right. And so you can do the same thing if you don't have the money. But the question is, can you inspire people? Yeah. Can you get people rallied around you? Can you lay out a vision? There's a great book called Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. It's an awesome one. Like read about like, how do you write a vision that your team can get behind? How do you attract people? How do you speak better? I mean, how many times are people like, oh yeah, I would never be good at the energy. I'm like, well, when's the last time you took a course on public speaking? Like that's a piece of it, being able to communicate to your team. So yeah, you can't get to any level free, right? There's a cost to everything, but you don't have to go through all 4 levels in your business to get to that level. I guess that's how I'd answer that. Yeah.
And for sure, I think that's true. I think, you don't have to touch every level along the way. And I think, and maybe my thought is that not everybody can be the energy. Like, you know what I mean? Like there are probably some people that are really good COOs, but the energy and the architect, like that's it's just a different skill set, a different personality type, whatever you want to call it.
It could be, but it could be done. It could be bought, right? I mean, like, let's say like this, like, let's say you wanted to start, let's say you want to start a roofing company. Like, how would you start a roofing company as an architect or as an energy? I mean, you would probably find somebody who's a really good manager. You'd like just in your world, you go to church with them or you play golf with this dude. And he's been a manager at whatever, the local hardware store for 20 years. He's got a lot of connections and he's really good at systems and processes. He loves the book Traction from Gino Wickman. He loves systems. And you're like, hey, I've got an idea. I think we can make $1 million a year each. And here's how I propose we do it. I'm going to start a roofing company. I want you to run it for me. I'm going to pay you a salary and I want you to build a team and I want you to go build it. He'd be like, hell yeah, let's do it, bro. And then he goes and he hires a project manager. The project manager hires 4 workers. Your COO, the guy you like, he brings his buddy who does marketing, and they get a bunch of leads. And you got somebody else who's doing sales and somebody else is doing, finance. And meanwhile, you're not doing anything. Like you literally brought the COO to things. That didn't like what skill set does that require? Not a lot, other than that you laid out a vision and said, hey, I think we can do this. Let's go. Now, the bigger question then is like, well, why wouldn't that guy just go do it on his own? And he might. And so this is where, like in real estate, it's very hard to do what I do. It's very hard to go and raise capital, which is why the energy is usually one of those people that can do something that's hard to do. But just roofing is not hard to do. Anybody can do roofing, but getting people marching in one order, you read one book like Traction, and then like you just make your team do that. I think anybody could do the energy. They're not necessarily going to be an eccentric or charismatic person, right? But anybody can hire a COO and tell them where to go and watch them go and lead them there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that answer. I genuinely was curious kind of your thoughts on that. Because I think I guess I still think that you specifically have, and maybe this is what you have built up over time. This is the, sort of personal capital that you built in your career leading up to Open Door Capital, where people could see you as the energy, where like maybe in those first couple of years when you're just doing, your residential, not just, I don't like to discount people doing stuff like that, but sure. Kind of the, where you were at that point in your evolution may not have been as, because I think to be the energy, the architect, you've got to have some level of like be inspirational to people.
Yeah, you got to have this confidence. I think that that's probably the number one biggest thing is confidence. I didn't have the confidence when I was young to inspire people. I should say this. I probably had the confidence in terms of my real estate. Like even as I was just getting started, could I have brought in and inspired somebody? Probably. Could I have hired and inspired Walker, who's my COO right now? Probably not. Like he wasn't going to go leave a 6-figure job to go risk it on me when I was just getting started. But somebody would have risked it. Somebody working over at Starbucks for $12 an hour probably would have left their job to go and work for me if I fired them up. But I didn't even know that was a possibility. This is why I like talking about this topic, because like, it's not that everyone needs to be the energy. I just want people to be aware that there are other options like than what you would default to. We all default to usually the DIY. Some people default to a project manager if that's where they came from, or a COO if that's where they came from in a previous career. But know that like you don't have to sit at DIY forever, even if you had to start there. Instead, like ask yourself, like, what would somebody else, like what would Elon Musk do, or Richard Branson, Brandon Turner, like what would they do to build this business? And what if I built it from the outside looking in? Or what if I bought a company? I mean, SBA loans are 90% loans. Like you put 10% down, you buy $1 million roofing company, you are the energy from day one. Like as long, there's skill sets that are required of you. You have to be able to hire a good COO. You have to be able to establish a vision. And those are important skill sets. But you could also, once you know that is a skill set of an energy, then guess what? You're going to be taking classes on leadership, public speaking, like confidence, pitching, persuasion, all that.
Right. And I think you've mentioned it a time or two, just, sort of taking a public speaking class, things like that. But I think it points to a really important aspect in all of this is just education. And so, there's, I know you read a ton, you had a podcast, you interviewing guests and then you have people you have coach. I know, I'm pretty sure you have coaches, people get coaches. Like it's even at that level, at the high level of achieving, or maybe even more so at a high level of achieving, is when people really see the value in coaching and kind of that education that can continue to push you forward and help you develop those skill sets.
Yeah. I'm such a big believer. I mean, one of the core values of my company that we establish and we talk about all the time is continual improvement, or we call it relentless improvement. It's like you can always get better. It drives me nuts. My daughter, one of the things my daughter says drives me nuts all the time. She's so overly confident with everything. She always thinks she's the best at whatever it is she does. Like she's terrible at tennis and she thinks she's like Serena Williams. She's just like, she can't even hit the ball. She's 6 years old. She can't even hit the ball one time. And I'll say things like, I'll say, I don't know. I'll be like, she'll be like, I did so good today. I'm like, yeah, you did really good. And I'm like, you just got to keep practicing. She'll like, no, I don't. I'm already the best. I'm like, no, you're not. You're like, and as a parent, I'm like, no, you are terrible and you're awful. And I'm glad you're having fun, but like, you can always get better in everything you do. Every phone call, every conversation, every marketing piece you put out there, every deal you close, everything you could have done better. And so I think that's one thing that made BiggerPockets Podcast so big for so long, is me and Josh would end every single episode. Like after we let the guests go, we'd go, okay, what sucked? Like, let's talk about what sucked. And we'd be like, oh yeah, I didn't really like the way I asked that question, or I was too much pauses there, or I didn't like the technology broke down. My internet wasn't good enough. And then we'd say, how do we fix it next time? How do we do it better next time? So there's like this like mission debriefing sort of feels like whenever you done with military, when military people go to a mission, they always come back and they debrief. It's a part of like military culture. You always debrief. Why? To figure out what went wrong and what can you change in your systems to do better next time. And, yeah, that's the thing that sets apart successful people almost more than anything, is just their continual drive to improve and to never rest upon their laurels and to say, I can do better. I can do better. I can do better, no matter how good they did.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I think, although it sounds like your daughter has the confidence to be the architect or
yeah, she might.
she's ready to go at a young age.
She's like, I'm the best. I'm there. I'm great.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, that search for continual improvement, you can always be, I mean, when I train residents in surgery, and we do, like, when you fix a fracture, you do something orthopedic, you take a post-op x-ray to look at, how it came out, right? So you see with your eyes, but you take an x-ray and make sure everything, I would tell them, and I believe this, don't tell me it's perfect. Even if I did it, don't tell me it's perfect. To find out what's wrong here, because that's how we get better next time. So I think that, applicable, the military example, it's all great. Well, Brandon, let me talk to you all day, but let me switch gears so I don't keep you all day, and we'll I'll ask you the questions I ask every guest.
Sure, man.
I'm sure you'll have fantastic answer to this, but the name of the show is Know Your Why. So first question I ask every guest is what is your why, and kind of what drives you for obviously you were successful and you're getting continually more successful.
Yeah, man. In the beginning, it was all about financial freedom so I could spend time with my future kids. I didn't have kids, but I wanted kids. And I said, I want freedom to be able to spend time with them. I'm also a big FOMO guy, like the fear of missing out. And so like another thing that drove me was the fear of missing out on travel. Like the world is so big and it's so incredible. I mean, think about like your area you live in, how many little cool things you know about within 20 miles that are just like that nobody would ever know. It's never written in a book, maybe even, but like, you're like, there's so many amazing places all around the world. Like a billion people, there's a billion areas in the world that have amazing things to see. And I wanted to see as much of it I could. And I knew I couldn't with a job. So my why in the beginning was I wanted to be a good father and be there and be present for my future kids. And I wanted to see the world. Now that has shifted a lot. Like today I am there for my kids a lot. In fact, after this call, I'm going to go inside and have lunch with my kids and go hang out for a while. But, and the travel thing, I do a lot of it and I will continue to do it. But today it's really elevated to a new spot where today I'm like, okay, the kind of the three phases of my career, right? Phase one, which was the DIY, like doing my work myself with my wife, and we've built a rental portfolio. Phase two, which was again the BiggerPockets world of marketing. Phase three, which is leadership and growth and scaling a company. Like, how do I use these things to better humanity? And specifically, I'm passionate about like just the horribleness of human trafficking. And so I'm like, well, how can I use these things to benefit human trafficking initiatives? And I'm looking forward to kind of a phase four, the next part of my life, which says, how can I give away? Like, I'm good at making money. I'm better than most at making money and building business. And I've got these skills. So how do I generate $1 billion over my life to give away? That's kind of my new why. It's like, how can I generate $1 billion to give away? To save a bunch of women and children. I think that's pretty good why that I should never get tired of.
Yeah, I imagine, unfortunately, I mean, well, I hope I'm wrong, but unfortunately, maybe not not a solvable problem, but something that can be improved.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things about that question and all of the guests I've asked is it seems like the more success people have, the more personal success, the bigger their business grows, the more that impact becomes their why, right? So it's like almost everybody's looking for some sort of, time or financial freedom in their personal lives, spend time with kids, that sort of thing. But then when people get almost even more passionate about what's my cause, what's my, my impact on a local or a global level, but I just love hearing that. And I'm not surprised by it anymore, but when I started to realize that was kind of what happens, it actually like fired me up. I'm like, awesome. I look forward to like that same level of impact. So very cool. This might be a hard one for you. Is there something you can share with us about yourself that most people don't know? A special skill, a hobby? I know you're very well known, so this might be a tricky one.
That's a good question. What do people not know about me? So I do jujitsu. A lot of people know that. I'm not very good at it. I'm a white belt, and I'm just getting started, but I'm trying. But I'm always hurt. I'm always injured. It's because I'm old and breaking. So I like that. What's something that people don't know about me? I like old school video games. So like I like have a Nintendo DS, which I don't play except for I play the Nintendo 64 emulator within the Nintendo DS or whatever it's called. And so I can play like old school games like Mario Kart. So I'm like a huge fan of like Mario. The original Nintendo 64 Mario Kart is the greatest game of all time. So I could play that for hours and never get bored.
That's amazing. Mario Kart is, I don't know which system, the one where you actually have the little wheel. That's a blast. Like it is really a fun game. And some of those old video games were not technologically advanced, but maybe more fun than what is available now.
I agree.
What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm like a 13-year-old girl on Instagram. So Beardy Brandon on Instagram, just beard with a Y at the end, Beard E Brandon. And I'm on Instagram. I'm also like Twitter, but I don't respond very well there, and TikTok, but I don't respond there very well. But Instagram's kind of my DM system, is where I engage people. Or odcfund.com is like my company website. So if you have questions about the actual real estate deals we do, odcfund.com.
Awesome. Final question, Brandon. What's a piece of advice you would give to somemeone who is starting out?
Yeah, boring stuff. That's easy. Boring stuff. Like, I know I cut you off there, but it's such an important thing. Almost all success comes down to doing boring, repeatable tasks. Like to lose weight, you just got to eat healthy every day for months and months and months, and you will lose weight. Like there's a mindset component to this as well, but really just like are you doing the boring, repeatable tasks? Are you making the offers? Are you sending the lead? Are you getting the leads? Are you driving your neighborhood looking for properties? Like, are you doing the boring stuff? So define the boring stuff, track the boring stuff, and get accountability on the boring stuff. Get somebody to say, are you doing a good job? Get a bunch of buddies together, get a coach, whatever. Define the boring stuff, track it. Are you really doing it? And get accountability on it. And you can accomplish literally anything. It's that simple.
I love it. That is not often put that way, but I like it. I like the sentiment because it's just there is a lot to success that is pretty boring and repetitive. It's like doing the right things over and over again. Well, Brandon, thank you so much. It's been awesome. I really appreciate having you on the show and taking the time out and sharing your story. Yeah,
man. Thanks for having me. This has been a blast. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, everyone. I am sure you will love this episode. So please like, rate, and review, and check out Brandon. He shouldn't be hard to find. Look for the beard.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.